Good evening, everybody. It is about time, so let's find a seat. We're about to get started. 1 minute warning. How about that? All right.
We were assuming
You guys? Huh?
we were assuming you wanted us to.
Oh, yes. Yes. Please. It's all about you tonight. Without you, we wouldn't need to be here.
Okay, gentlemen, Jeremy from Back to Me. So I don't need you to mute yourself, but if you so inclined, you're welcome to press that button. But
Sounds good.
try not to, need to. Move it up closer. If you see me in the back, maybe.
It's not to say hi.
I don't think I met you yesterday.
No, everything happened so fast. It was a blur. Jesse.
Jesse?
And,
Okay.
and I see the Facebook post, so I kind of got your first names already because they let that out today.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the city of Fitchburg. Everybody hear me okay? Thank you for taking the time to be here today. This is a very important day for the city, and as a police and fire commissioner, I'm excited to be here today to introduce you to some wonderful individuals, and we're thrilled to have everybody here. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing you to the 3 finalists for the position of Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director for the City of Fitchburg. My name is Sean Baxter, and I have the honor of serving as a commissioner on Fitchburg's Police and Fire Commission. I'd also like to introduce 2 of my fellow commissioners who are here tonight, Commissioner Banks, please stand, and Commissioner Ibarra. To ensure community involvement through this process, it's important that we hear from the community. The city has initiated a public questions and answer session. We've also asked for some questions from the public, which you'll hear tonight. From those submissions, the commission has selected 4 key questions, which each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer. After the Q&A, we'll encourage those in attendance to take the opportunity to come up and meet the candidates, mingle with the candidates, ask additional questions you may have, and get to know them a little bit better. Towards the end of the evening, you'll hear from me again, and I'll invite you to take your seats, and we'll reconvene for the candidates' closing remarks. They'll have approximately, 3 minutes for their closing remarks as well. And then we'll conclude the event at 8:30 sharp, Sarah says. Before we begin with the formal questions, we'd like to invite each candidate to briefly introduce themselves, share their qualifications, and explain the interest that they have in becoming Fitchburg's next fire chief and emergency management director. Please keep your introductions to 5 minutes or less, gentlemen. Jesse, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you. So a little bit about me. Kind of been around the country from state to state. I was born in Florida, grew up in California, did some schooling in New York. I came back to the Midwest because that's where my roots are. Both my parents were from the Dubuque area over in Iowa. I came back here, established a family, and began a career or a pursuit of a career in the fire service. At that time, it was required to be a paramedic to be on the Dubuque Fire Department, so I sought my EMS training out very early on. I became a paramedic, got on Dubuque Fire Department. Prior to Dubuque, though, I'll backpedal a little bit. I was a volunteer for a few years in a suburb there until I finished up my paramedic program. I went on to establish a private ambulance service that is still in operation today. Kind of the proud note was that private ambulance service went on to run 911 for the community that it served, which was kind of a unique experience. Shortly after starting up that ambulance service, I received a job offer from Dubuque. I was employed there for about 20 years as I sought to challenge myself through things. I started to look for growth, and in the fire service, as you want to grow, those opportunities become more narrow as you go up. I did accept a chief position in 2023, in August 2023, in a city called Spencer in northwest Iowa, where I've been a chief there at a combination fire department since accepting that job. During that time, I was successful at a scholarship that the Iowa Professional Firefighters put out, and I was able to finish up and challenge myself to finish up my associate's degree and my bachelor's degree in fire service administration, thanks to that during that time. And there was a second part to that. Was it introduction and then?
Just introduction.
Okay.
Yeah. Tell us about
And
yourself.
so I'm here visiting your city because it's exciting to see what this city is doing and maybe be a part of its future.
Very good. Thank you. Michael.
Excuse me. First of all, I want to say thanks for having me tonight. This is really an honor, and I'm very humbled to be here as one of the finalists for the fire chief's position. And I don't know how I can squeeze all of this in 5 minutes, so Sarah, maybe you want to give me a little bit more, like an extra minute or something, if that's okay.
No.
But look, my name is Michael Wright. I'm from the city of Milwaukee, born and raised. I went to MPS schools from kindergarten all the way up till about 7th grade. And then my mother was like, you know what, you're still getting good grades, but you're messing around a lot, so I'm gonna take you out of this MPS school, right? So this is exactly what she did. Then I was bussed out to City of Oak Creek East, and then subsequently a graduate of Oak Creek High School, which was a very, very, very culture shock to me, coming from the inner city all the way out to the suburbs via a school bus. That built a lot of character. Once I got out of the high school, I decided to go to Milwaukee Area Technical College, where I ended up being an ASC certified mechanic. I was certified in front end, suspension, brakes, and exhaust, and air conditioning. I was a custom exhaust fabricator as well. I knew that I wasn't gonna, keep that job for long because I think there was a higher calling for me. Not that that was, anything to squawk about. So I ended up running into my uncle outside of Engine 30s in Milwaukee, and he inspired me to become a firefighter. So hey, you got to go get your EMT license. You got to go get your Fire 1 and your Fire 2, and I did all of that. The hardest thing I ever did was go to Burlington, Wisconsin, out Gateway, and get my paramedic license, and then subsequently a critical care paramedic license. After that, I worked privates a little bit, Curtis Ambulance and Medicare Ambulance, and got my base there, and then got hired by the West Dallas Fire Department. Now, here's a little bit of fact about West Dallas Fire Department. Now, 2008, the year 2008, I didn't know this. They told me this when they hired me, that I was the only person of color in the county outside of the Milwaukee Fire Department. So out of 598 firefighters, there was only one black firefighter, and that was me. And I was, my flabbers were gasted, right? And I was just like, I couldn't believe that. So got hired by the fire department, and went and got my associate's degree from MATC in business management. Subsequently went and got my a bachelor's degree from Cardinal Stritch in business management. And then I got my master's degree from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in human resources and labor relations. So I figured that that would be a better skill set for me in my fire department to better manage the resources and have a good relationship with the union for labor relations. After that, I made lieutenant, went to deputy chief right after that of fire prevention. And, there's a couple of ranks in between there. There's a captain rank and there's a battalion chief rank. But being the subject matter expert, I kind of skipped those. But then I went back as a battalion chief because that's something that I desired to do. Went back as a battalion chief, then administration asked me to come back because they liked my skill set. Say, can you come back and do training in EMS for us? And that's where I'm at now. This is my second year in training in EMS. I'm not married, I don't have any kids. When you grow up like I did, the focus is on yourself because it's about survival and you're just trying to survive. So I had to be an adult before I was ever a kid. So I took care of myself and all those things as far as relationships and other things had to take a back seat because I had to take care of myself and make sure I become a productive citizen of society. So now that I got all that squared away, then now my personal life is open. that's just a little bit about me.
Great, thank you, thank you. All right, Scott, you're up.
Hi, my name's Scott Sarver, and I currently live in the Denver, Colorado area. I'm what's called a district chief, probably better described as a shift commander of the South Metro Fire Department, which pretty much covers all of the southern suburbs of Denver, Colorado. More? Okay, sorry. Is this better? All right. So again, Scott Sarver, currently from the Denver metro area. I'm what's called a district chief or shift commander for the South Metro Fire Department currently, which is pretty much all of the southern suburbs of Denver, Colorado. I got my start in the fire service when I was a ski patroller in the mountains of Colorado. I did that, and I got affiliated with a volunteer fire department there, where I quickly became a resident firefighter, which is very similar to Fitchburg's intern program. I did that for a while and really caught the bug of the fire service. I quickly moved down to the Denver area and started my career firefighter job, where I became a paramedic shortly into that career and progressed all the way up to my current position, which is district chief. So I went through lieutenant, captain, safety officer, battalion chief, special operations chief, and then ended up at district chief. Come from a pretty large organization. We have a lot of exposure, run a lot of incidents and things like that. Along the way, my formal education is I graduated from the University of Iowa, where I was born and raised, was in eastern Iowa. So graduated there with a bachelor's in sociology and juvenile delinquency. And then throughout my fire service career, I attended Columbia Southern University and achieved my master's in public administration. I also attended the National Fire Academies program called the Executive Fire Officer Program, which I hold that certificate. And then I have a certificate of professional development from FEMA in emergency management, which is about an equivalent of an associate's degree. I spent a lot of time in special operations, which is technical rescue, hazardous materials response, as well as I belong to incident management teams and have a past history of FEMA urban search and rescue with several deployments to hurricanes, floods, and tornadoes and things like that. So lots of different experience that I come from. As far as why I want to come to Fitchburg, is my family and I have fallen in love with Wisconsin as we vacationed here ever since my kids were little, just like I did when I was little. And if you ask my kids today who have had the opportunity to travel to lots of destinations, what's their favorite place to come to, and they'll say Wisconsin. For some of the surprising faces in the audience that I see right now, people typically have that response when I say that. But I think, like me in Colorado, sometimes we take a lot of the things in our communities and our states for granted. And I think you have an amazing state with so many great recreational opportunities. Not that Colorado doesn't have it, but again, I reflect back to my childhood and the experiences I had here, the community values, the sense of community in Wisconsin, and it's just very attractive for myself and my family. The town I started as my career in the fire service, very similar to where Fitchburg's at right now. A thriving and growing community, lots of young families, lots of people that want to see a very positive future for their community. And that's a very attractive thing for somebody like myself in seeking a position of fire chief. So I couldn't be more excited about being here, and I really appreciate everybody showing up and taking interest in this. So.
Excellent, thank you. So that completes the opening statements. We'll move on to the Q&A section. I'll remind you all that you have 3 minutes to respond. We'll rotate the starting order, so it's fair for all. And we'll start, I guess, right here with you, Scott, if that's all right. We'll go back the other way.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay. Yep. What is your vision for Fitchburg Fire Department in the next 5 years? And briefly describe the steps you will take to implement this vision. 3 minutes.
Briefly. All right. That's a tough one. All right. So here we go. So my vision for Fitchburg Fire Department is obviously that we want to be a very positive, strong, cultured emergency services organization that's very customer focused, that looks for the most efficient and effective ways to serve the community. So in general, I would say that would be my vision. How are we going to get there? For me, I need to get to know the Fitchburg Fire Department, the Fitchburg area, all the community partners, internal partners, and stakeholders within the community, and really try and gain a good consensus of what those desires and needs are for myself. Along that way, I hope I can be seen as a valuable team member to both the fire department and the city and any of the other community stakeholders, and also our surrounding response partners in emergency services. In order to do that, we need to have a strong sense of who we are and what we're here for, and strive to do our best with following up and educating our training center. Educating and training ourselves on new and ever-changing hazards within the fire service and emergency services community. And by always holding ourselves accountable, keeping ourselves humble, working hard, being responsive, and really depending on each other and supporting each other. On the financial side of that is just making sure that we're being the most efficient and effective we can with the dollars we have available for our resources. That's a tough thing for the fire service. Firefighters are incredibly motivated to do more and do better and provide more service. So it's really important that, as a fire chief, that I would be very good at interpreting what's available, what the potential are, what the potential is, and what the plan is to get there. So hopefully that addresses that question.
Very good. Michael, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You got 3 minutes.
So my 5-year plan is basically, it's going to be about the Fitchburg Fire Department and all those ladies and gentlemen sitting back there. The first thing we need to focus on is operational effectiveness. Does our resources match the community? Okay, and if they don't, then why don't they, and how we get there, right? So we need to focus on that first. To dovetail off what Scott said here, enhancing the training of the firefighters. We got to make sure that we're all hazards department. We have to make sure that we are ready for those high acuity calls. So we're going to invest in some training, and that's going to ultimately help our citizens out, and they're going to feel more safe because we're here for them. We want to make sure that these fire trucks and fire engines are top tier, right? We want to make sure we got the best equipment out there, because if it's not safe, then ultimately the firefighters, they're not safe. So we want to make sure that that's top tier as well. And we can't forget community involvement. We're here to serve the community, right? And we have to be more involved and deeply entrenched with the community. So how are we going to get there? We have to have a plan, right? And a lot of these things I think that, Scott talked about, and what I'm talking about right now, 5 years, you really have to address that in a strategic plan, right? We have to address these issues in a strategic plan, because if you don't have the plan, it'll never get accomplished. I got 1:30 left. All right, so that's what I'm focused on, and I want these resources to match the needs of the folks out here in the crowd.
Very good, thank you. Jesse.
Ready? A 5-year vision is a pretty long stretch for a community, especially a community like Fitchburg that's growing on a pretty frequent basis. To have a 5-year plan or vision is great, but when you look at a fire department and you look at a city, I think by summary is an effective and efficient response force. That's what our vision should be. Now, how you accomplish that is going to come in many different ways. Two critical components is to always, and I think other members were alluding to this too, we have to evaluate our community and our community needs. The vision that I have today for 5 years, after 12 months in Fitchburg and growth and expansion happens, it's going to change. So if we keep a goal that's efficient and effective response force, and we keep an eye on the demands of our community. So first layer is community. We have to look at the needs of our community. Are we performing and providing the services that our community demands of us? Are they growing? We have to spend a lot of time understanding that growth, not just say it's growing, give me more. It's where is it growing, where is it might be receding, and what needs are there. So a needs assessment in the community can happen in many different ways. For the fire service, we can take a look and extract data. Where are our calls at? Where are our heat maps showing where our services are needed, where they may not be needed anymore? And what calls for service maybe we were unable to fulfill for the community. All of those points will help us do a needs assessment for the community on an annual basis with the focus of a vision of that 5-year plan. That 5-year plan could say the same. I think most citizens expect that. That's what I've seen in my role. They want an efficient, which talks about money and being fiscally responsible, and an effective response to that need the community has. I think a second critical point of that is the department itself. We need to do a needs assessment within the department. What kind of training do we need? We all want a lot of things, but does the city demand that? Does our community demand that from us? Do they need that resource, or do we reallocate things from other areas to build and reinforce things that we might already have in place? I think a critical component to the department, along with data tracking and understanding how much training, how many calls for service, and what types of calls, what nature of calls, I think is the involvement from the department members. No one person can guide that and identify that need. I think the people that are out on the streets performing it, that need, and out into the community, they're going to be the ones that have the best information, most accurate information to say, hey, at the end of this year, I can reflect on last year. Where are we meeting the community's needs? So the two key components is the community and the department, assessing those needs on a regular basis, because we change on a regular basis with the ultimate goal and ultimate vision for the fire department in the city is an efficient, effective response force.
Great, thank you. Second question, we'll start with you, Michael. Okay. Firefighters tend to want a chief who will have their back. If asked whether you will have a firefighter's back, how have you or how would you respond?
Having a firefighter's back comes in a myriad of ways and forms. For example, I want firefighters to go home every night. I want them to retire healthy. So having their back could mean having extractors in the firehouse to wash the gear, to get the car seat engines out so they can go home safe and don't develop any type of cancers. Also, from my experience, I'll give you a personal example. We have the Joint Fire Training Academy, and it's compiled of several communities, and every community has to chip in money to provide lunch for the firefighters. Well, at some point, my community felt like they didn't want to do that, and I couldn't understand why. I drove up to the drill field and say, hey, you know, this community isn't putting in the money for this, and I'm like, okay, well let me handle it really quickly. And I found out that there was the finance director wanted to cut the spending for the food. And so I went to the fire chief and I said, hey, is this something that you can deal with, that you can navigate this terrain to get the food to the firefighters for all the communities? And I didn't get much of a response there. So what I did is I went to City Hall and I sat with the finance director. I didn't email that person. I wanted to see them face to face. And I wanted them to tell me that you weren't going to get food for firefighters to my face, right? And so all it was a conversation with the finance director and a little bit of understanding and working collaboratively with the finance department that I was able to spend that money and get the food for the firefighters in that training academy. That's having their back. And also, I just want to say, nobody remembers really what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And so when I go to the firehouse as a battalion chief, deputy chief, fire chief, you know, I want them to be able to approach me and not be afraid of me because I wear gold. You know, I want them to be able to come to me with issues, and I want to be able to help them solve them. I want them to feel comfortable. I want to create a culture of comfort and not walking on pins and needles. So that's having a firefighter's back. And you know, if somebody complains about a firefighter, you know, they're not always right. I want to have their back and say, hey, it's not what you think, this is what actually happened, and not just automatically accuse them and say that they're wrong. Because from my experience, that has happened. So that's having the firefighters back and sticking up for them and getting them what they need.
Great, thank you. Jesse?
I'd like to start with having a firefighter's back. I think the first thing you got to look at is the relationships you build and the trust that you gain amongst yourself and the firefighters. If there is an event or an incident that you need to have a firefighter's back, I think the key point, Michael alluded to that too, is having a clear understanding of what's happening. Most disagreements and most issues that people have, it's shown that 75% of that is just from a misunderstanding or miscommunication. So having good understanding can help save you some embarrassment for pursuing something that might not be there. How do you gain that trust and that relationship with the firefighters that you're honored to lead and show the way? It starts with consistency, clear expectations from you to the firefighters. It also comes with good policies, procedures. Now, I don't build those. We should build those as a department, so it's not a policy or procedure or clear expectation that I have of you. It's one that we've agreed upon as a department. When we come from the same place and we have that same foundation, you reduce those potential problems or the need to have a firefighter's back in incidents if you've laid good groundwork and you've included the members in that process, because then they have buy-in too, and they're part of it. We share values and we move in that same direction. When you kind of also alluded to just advocating for the safety of firefighters, the equipment that they may need, the resources that they may need so they can actually fulfill their job, come home safely, and have a good retirement at the end of the day. So having their back, trust, relationships, and it has to be a joint effort. It has to be something we do together. It can't be my rules, my policies. It has to be ours, because then we all have buy-in, we all have stake in that game, and we all build the foundation of the department moving forward.
Great, thank you. Scott?
So in general, I feel very confident in making the statement. I would always have a firefighter's back who's trying to do the right thing. And there's a lot of different settings that can be placed in. If they're trying to do the right thing for a citizen, for a patient, for a customer, for a fellow firefighter, absolutely. And a good way to qualify that is, obviously, if it's a procedural issue, if it's a guideline issue, if it's well-intentioned diversion from one of those processes, as long as they're trying to do the right thing, I'm going to have their back. Now, as far as generally, I think it's the fire chief's job to have the firefighters back. That's also a greater community, whether it's on the national or international level, about supporting causes and helping progress the fire service to becoming safer and healthier. Myself, I've had a long history of developing programs and policy to assist. Some of those programs are cancer prevention, like we've mentioned up here already, securing equipment and programs to help us be cleaner and healthier, as well as veterans benefits, training curriculum, and advances in fire research and operational practices to help make us safer on the fire ground, and really help everybody go home happy and healthy. On the mental health side of things, I strongly support a peer support program in every fire station, in every fire department, that we can look out for each other and make the time and make the training available that the people that work in the fire stations with their brother and sister firefighters can help take care of each other. So in general, those are my responses to having someone's back.
Great, thank you. Move on to the third question. Jesse, we'll start with you. Two-part question. What is your leadership style, and what makes you effective when dealing with city leadership, fire department command staff, employees, and the public?
I might ask you to repeat that second one. First one, leadership style. I see myself as a transformational leader and a servant leader. I want to encourage and empower people to become leaders themselves. I think it's the responsibility of a leader to actually create more leaders. It's not about me, it's not about the control, it's about bringing people along and empowering them to become the best versions of themselves and help them to succeed, whatever their goals are. Their goals might not be the same as mine. I've seen great fire engineers that drove a fire engine their whole life, and they did great at what they did, and they retired at that. So I think it's important to to understand that, and that everybody has different values or different goals in life. The other thing I want to preface on leadership styles are fluid, especially for us in life-threatening, high-stress incidents. It's great to be a transformational leader and a servant leader, but there are times where you have to be more of an autocratic or someone that is giving commands and control. But that happens at certain times. So I think leadership needs to be fluid. There's times where you need just more than that. But I think I define myself as a transformational leader / servant leader, and I do my best to follow that practice.
Second part of that question again was, what makes you effective when dealing with city leadership, fire department command staff, employees, and the public? What makes you effective?
That's a two-part. First of all, you got to be educated. If you're coming to city council, or if you're coming to the community and you want to educate or you want to give something, you better have a good understanding yourself of that. And sometimes you need help to understand that stuff. To be effective with that is also including people in the process. I don't know everything. So if I'm asking for city council or I'm dealing with command staff, sometimes I have to be humble enough to say, what are your thoughts? Include others in that process, fosters buy-in from those members, so it gains support. Plus, I have to see other people's perspectives. So the more I educate and the more I reach out, the more I communicate and build relationships with others in the community, whether it be building a relationship with political individuals or elected individuals, other department heads, other departments in the city, and also the relationships, obviously, most obviously is in the fire service itself. Building those relationships will help to be more successful at accomplishing our goals as a team.
Great, thank you. Scott, you're next.
So leadership style. So I've had the opportunity to have several different evaluations of how my personality type, my leadership style, best work practices, things like that. And consistently over the years, it's come up that I'm a builder and a developer. So building strong teams, building strong processes, equipment, and practices on the fire ground or EMS ground. A developer, one of my passions is helping other people be successful. So I'm glad that those come up in those evaluation tools because those truly are things that I enjoy and like to see. Because I think as a strong leader, you need to develop people to take your job. And the stronger that you can make your team, the better off everybody's going to be. So I am glad that those come up. So my leadership style, I base it on 4 values. Being a professional and expecting the people that I work with to be professional. Accountability, holding myself accountable as well as the others that I work with. Having compassion for the community, my internal partners and external partners. And then engagement, staying engaged, keeping my folks engaged, and engaging the folks that fund us and we provide service to with what we're doing and what we're doing to try and improve our service to the citizens. And then the second part was?
Second part, again, was what makes you effective when dealing with the city leadership, fire department command staff, employees, and the public?
So very similar answer. I think showing up very well educated on the topic and the goal that you're trying to achieve, and being able to explain that in a way that everybody that's listening can understand. Also staying abreast of progress, research, and developments in our occupation and field. And then also being a very strong team member within that group to understand that there's times that compromise is necessary, that other department or area goals are going to be more important than maybe some of our wants versus needs. So I think if you walk into that with that positive and supportive team member attitude, that you can be very successful in those environments.
Very good. Thank you. Our fourth and final question. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Am I lost?
Just kidding.
Your turn, Michael. My bad. I'll repeat it for you. Okay. What is your leadership style? What makes you effective when dealing with city leadership, fire department command staff, employees, and the public?
I think it is very fluid, to dovetail on what you just spoke on. I believe in growing people. I spoke about this all week. And I believe servant leadership is great, and that's what I practice. But there's no one-size-fits-all leadership for every situation. Just look at this week. I've been here since Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and now Thursday. Not one call, not one email, nothing from the Bureau of Training and EMS. And I'm proud of that because that means I've done my job. I've processed, mapped everything. I empowered those people to make the decisions. They know that I'm gonna back them and not come behind them and say, what'd you do that for? Or why'd you make that decision? That's not how I get down, you know? So I'm very proud of that, and I think it is about training people to take your position, and I really love that. That is my passion, to help people grow. When I was in charge of the fire prevention department, I did the same thing with another lieutenant. I go on vacation or I'm somewhere and I'm not there, no phone calls, no emails, no phone calls from him to do anything. That is a sign of a good leader. That's a good sign of servant leadership and training somebody up and molding them and growing people. I am passionate about that. Every situation is different. I was a platoon C commander that didn't have a battalion chief for 3 years. So, you know, there was some work that needed to be done there. You have to be more autocratic in that situation. And I was. And after they were able to meet the expectations and prove themselves, then you loosen that up and you become more laissez-faire because they're competent and you trust them and you built that trust and relationships in the firehouse. The second part of your question, I think, was how do you interact with City Hall officials as far as...
What makes you effective when dealing with city leadership, fire command staff, employees in public?
Yeah, you have to have the relationships with those individuals. Those are built. There's not a single person back in the city of West Dallas that don't know who Mike Wright is, and I know who they are. When they need help with voting, I'm going to go there and help them with voting. If economic planning and development needs my expertise for fire prevention, I go there and I give them my expertise and work collaboratively with them. If I need to work with the city attorney, Kel Decker, then that's what I do. I work with him and we work through it, and I'm there every time. Another thing that I do is I'll go over every day. They just don't see my face when it's convenient. I'm there every day. And I take those folks out to lunch on my dime because I think those relationships are important. And that's how you grow that relationship with City Hall officials, and that's how you become part of an executive team. And I think that is very, very important, progressing fire departments forward. And understand that we care about the rest of the city as well, and we're not just a silo.
Very good, thank you. Fourth and final question before we take a break to get to meet the candidates a little bit more personally. Scott, we're going to finish with you leading off, okay? What kind of outreach programs would you likely develop or currently enhance to educate property and homeowners on reducing fire risk? Do you have any experience with educational outreach in the community? And please share any positive experiences in that regard.
So as far as outreach to prevent fire risk or reduce those numbers, I think, you know, we have to embrace technology. I think probably everybody in this room has a device on them that embraces technology. So I've seen a lot of very positive outcomes from utilizing social media in the like mini clip version that's very popular with our current attention spans due to the internet, about, you know, preventing cooking fires. Where I'm from, a lot of it's about preventing wildland or forest fires. But really just getting that information out there as a frequent reminder of what causes incidents, whether it's juveniles playing with matches or playing with fire, things like that. But I think embracing technology and taking opportunity at community events, partnering with community agencies and community groups to get that message out in any format that you can is very beneficial. I think the presence of the fire department and any kind of emergency response staff within schools is very impactful. In growing up in rural Iowa, I didn't have much exposure to fire or EMS, and to tell you the truth, I didn't really figure out how it all worked until I moved to Colorado. That was no fault of anybody there. It was just the resources that were available. So to me, it was a mystery when I was a kid. So I think taking those opportunities in any way you can, where you're going to get a large group of people or utilize technology. Right now we're on Fact TV, which I watched some interviews recently on Fact TV, and it's a great opportunity. And I noticed that you have a pretty good social media presence, so I think those are great platforms to talk about, especially seasonal events that we can use to prevent fires.
Very good. Thank you. Michael?
Could you repeat the question,
Sure,
please?
you bet. That was a long one. What kind of outreach programs would you likely develop or currently enhance to educate property and homeowners about the risk of reducing the risk of fire? Do you have any experiences with educational outreach in the community? And are there any recent positive experiences you'd like to share?
I'm going to try to keep this within a specified time frame here. But so part of my job as the fire prevention chief, we developed a community-wide smoke alarm installment program, which I worked with my GIS department, and I got a heat map that says how many 111s and 113s, and for you that don't know what that is, those are house fires and cooking fires. How many of those events occurred in a specified area within the city? Once I got that heat map, then I got all the addresses from GIS, and on a Saturday, from 3 fire stations, the crews had a whole bunch of smoke detectors. That was a grant from Red Cross, and we went out and we canvassed the community proactively and put those smoke alarms up. Now, once we were inside of their home, we were able to take a look at some other things, some things that may cause trip and fall hazards, some things that may cause fires, or maybe you run into a house that has a hoarding condition, and now you have to get the health department involved. So what that did for us is get involved in the community. We're preventing and being proactive with fires by getting early notification into the house, and we were able to actually interact with the residents so they can get to know us, and we can get to know them, and we can lay out a plan for them right in front of them in case they get a fire in their home. So that was just one of the ways that we prevented fires. Another thing is fire investigation. When a fire happens, per law, we have to go in there and we have to investigate. And so once we go in there and investigate and cause a fire, then I leverage my social media platforms to say, hey, a fire occurred in this area. Make sure that you have your smoke alarms. Make sure you don't leave food unattended on the stove. Make sure that you're paying attention to all these things that may cause a fire. So you know what? Those investigations, what you're finding out is that, hey, this caused the fire, but you're also going to use that as a public education announcement to put out to the people on the social media platforms and perhaps the local news media as well to prevent those things. Another thing that we do well is we have a mobile integrated healthcare program now. All right, so for individuals, and what that program aims to do is to reduce recidivism for EMS. So if we're seeing the same person over and over and over and over again that utilizes fire department resources when they probably don't need them, that's where that program comes in, and we refer them, and then the fire department helps get the resources that they may need so that they can stop calling and we reduce that recidivism. We've done that for veterans. We've done that for our what we call our frequent flyer patients. And that's not fire prevention, but it's EMS prevention, and it could turn into fire prevention because of the conditions in the home. So all 3 of those programs, and I'm sure there's more that I'm leaving out. I don't have enough time. I got 12 seconds here, but all of those things have allowed us to interact with the community, get inside of the homes, and prevent calls for service.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse, should I repeat the question
Please,
one more time?
please.
All right. What kind of outreach programs would you develop or currently enhance to educate property and homeowners on reducing risks of fire? Do you have any experiences with educational outreach in the community? And are there any recent positive experiences you'd like to share?
So I kind of go back to what I said before. It's hard to have a blanket statement, right? Fire prevention and safety, and we'll give everybody that same picture. I think the critical part of that is assessing what your community needs are. How you can do that is you can go back into your reporting database and see what's happened in the last year, so then we can start gearing our fire prevention and safety campaign for the next year based off of what we're seeing. Otherwise, we might be hitting some fire prevention and safety topics that might not be as relevant to the community. A few years ago, I was in the fire marshal's office for the city at the time. You could volunteer to do that for a couple years. So I spent a couple years in our fire marshal's division, and I started to recognize we didn't have a really good presence in the schools. So I started to look at, again, assessing what was going on in the city. And the highest risk citizens that we were seeing in our city were kindergartners and first grades by looking at the data of our community. So as we evaluated that, we said, how can we build a program that would reach that most vulnerable part of the community for us? So in the midst of the studying and the research, I ended up writing an assistance to firefighter grant for fire prevention. We went out and bought we were successful with that. We collaborated with not just the community, but we also collaborated with the community school district and Red Cross to help partner to get this as successful as possible, because we wanted to reach every student, every preschool and every kindergarten student. So we applied for the grant and showing our partnership with all these agencies within the community, identified why this is a risk for our community. We were successful with that grant. I wrote that, submitted it. And we not only did we look at addressing it, but we wanted to build a program to move forward. So what we did is, part of the grant was we got the Sparky's Hazard House. It's a theatrical animated house that captures kids' attention, right? It has some interactive stuff, some smoke and some electrical zaps. You could hit the button and it draws their attention in. So I got buy-in from our department, which had no prevention program, a scheduled prevention program. But we were successful with the grant and worked with the Red Cross. We got, that year that we were successful with the grant, we got to 1,800 kindergarten and first grade students. We got to every kindergarten and first grade student in the city at that time with a coordinated approach for fire prevention and safety. Brought the Sparky's Hazard House, went to every school, built schools, relationships not with just the school or the students, but with the teachers. What we also did, trying to look forward now, is we did a smoke detector and battery install program with that. So we got a few thousand smoke detectors and a few thousand batteries. What we would do is we would offer at the community, if you'd like a firefighter to come to your home and do an inspection and an install, and so to make sure that they're installed properly, we actually were successful at doing that, and we emptied out all of our smoke detectors and batteries that year, about 2,000 of each. And what we did is we used that opportunity to get in the home again to educate, right? It's an opportunity to be there.
I'm sorry,
So
Scott, that's time. Sorry, Justin,
sorry.
sorry.
Didn't pay
We're up
attention
on
to the time
time.
on that
but
one.
thank you.
Thanks.
Very good. All right, that concludes our Q&A section of the evening. I will invite you now, we're going to take a short break. I'd invite you to mingle and ask the candidates if they would make their way throughout the crowd and get to know the candidates a little bit more. When you hear from me again, I'll ask you to take your seats and we'll hear from them for a final statement of 3 minutes each. All right, great, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for rejoining us. Before we conclude tonight, we're going to ask each candidate we're going to invite each candidate to deliver a closing statement. Leaving the community with their final message, each candidate will have 3 minutes. We did not pick the order in advance, so I'm willing to take volunteers.
I'll volunteer.
All right, Michael, you're first.
Well, you know, I just want to say that, is this on? Oh, here it is. I just want to say that, you know, the reason why I want to be the fire chief for the city of Fitchburg is for a couple of reasons, all right? I don't just seek out to apply for fire chief for any department. I believe that it has to be a good fit for me, and I have to be a good fit for the fire department. And earlier this week, I got here Tuesday, and I stayed in a hotel. I made it my mission to not let individuals in the city know what I was applying for or why I was here, right? And I went out to a restaurant, which I just found out that it was Sean's restaurant. I didn't know it. It was great food, and when I was there eating, I spoke to one of the bartenders, Adam, and I spoke with a whole lot of other folks that were inside of that restaurant, and I asked them about Fitchburg, and they told me a lot of great things about Fitchburg and how it's growing and how the community functions and things of that nature, and I'm very impressed with that. And so at the end, I told Adam that I was applying for the fire chief's position, and he was like, oh, really? You know, why didn't you tell me? No, I just wanted your honest opinion about stuff. But look, the city of Fitchburg is growing, and you believe in the communities. You have the healthy initiative grant that we got, and that's going to balance out any inequalities that you may have in any neighborhood. I like that because that's who we're serving. We're serving the community, and the next fire chief needs to be about community, and we need to be about the firefighters as well, and we need to be about progression and how we're going to move this thing forward. And the next chief has to be all-encompassing, right? We need the community's input. We need the firefighters' input. We need the command staff's input, and everybody's input to move the city forward and to grow it. I always say that these resources have to match the community, and you got to pick the right person that's up for it, and up for the challenge for this. Great city, and I'm excited, and I'm elated to be here, and I'm very I'm proud to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to have me come and speak today. So you gotta it's about to be, you gotta pick the right person to push this thing forward, and you gotta have a chief that's approachable, a chief that has empathy, a chief that can walk a mile in someone's shoes, a chief that can understand each and every discipline, that can provide some insight, and a chief that's open-minded and that's receptive to feedback, so that not only that you're connected to the agency, but you actually own it. There's a difference between being connected and having a piece of ownership. You're employed here, so you are connected, but now you need to own it. And the next fire chief needs to implement ownership amongst the rank and file there. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you soon, and I'm very, very, very humbled to be here, and thank you for everything.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Next volunteer.
I can jump in there, if that's all right. From a volunteer firefighter to a paramedic to opening ambulance services to working for a career department to being a current chief at a combination department very similar to what we have here. Everything that I've done has set me up for success in this. Good experiences, bad experiences, I've taken them to help me be more proficient and be more efficient as a chief for a fire department. As a current chief for a fire department right now, it's given me more exposure to things that I hadn't had just as a firefighter or acting a battalion chief or an acting assistant chief. It's given me exposure to other aspects of the career. It's allowed me opportunities to help develop our staff and influence our department, my current department, and things that I always held to value that maybe I haven't been able to implement. So leadership's about influence. I've been able to use these skills in the current department I'm in to actually change the direction of the department. We've changed initiatives. I've secured a multi-million-dollar CIP project within 6 months of being there, with the understanding and the education and sharing the ability to share that information with people. When I came into this department, we had an internal candidate that had tested twice for that chief position. That was difficult, it was difficult to overcome for that individual, but I'm going to tell you today, my leaderships aren't just something that I believe in. They're something that I practice, and I can show you where they're actually been effective. Today, if I was to walk away from that department, that internal candidate would be endorsed by me and has that capabilities through mentoring and coaching to be successful in that role. So it's not just something I've learned about or I talked about. It's something that I actually demonstrate today, and you can see that in the work that I've done with our department and growing our department. Our department is more stable. We have more critical thinkers. There's a running joke that, oh, you're going out of town, we're going to get a fire. But you know what? When that happens, I'm not scared. I've empowered our people to be critical thinkers. They're sustainable in their own training and knowledge, and they're comfortable in their skills. I don't have to micromanage them. I've provided them opportunities to grow. I'm not going to time myself out again. But some ask, why Fitchburg? I'm all the way over there and I'm all the way over. In summary, I started on the tri-state area there. I went one direction. My family and my son and his wife went the other direction. My goal was always to be back here in this area, but I was going to kind of finish up my pension and wait for an opportunity to get here. There's no other city or no other job that opened up that I've ever applied for here except for Fitchburg. It's exciting to see what this community has to offer, the creativity and the initiatives that this fire department has, I can learn from. If I'm not fortunate enough for the role or the position, I'm calling back because I want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it. So some ask why. It's family, it's friends, and that draws me back here. This is a place I'd hang my hat.
Thank you, Jesse. Scott?
First off, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody for coming. Thanks for everyone that's been involved in the process. Everyone's been so warm, welcoming, fun to talk to. As far as the position goes, it's a very exciting opportunity. I think I have a strong skill set that matches what this organization as well as what the community needs right now. So I would love the opportunity to be the next fire chief. And again, thanks so much for the warm welcoming and great experience here.
Wonderful. Well, that brings us to the end. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you all. It's been a busy couple days, I bet. Huh? Well, we are delighted to have you. Three excellent candidates for the position of Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director. That brings us to the end of our event for tonight. As a reminder, the Police and Fire Commission will meet again on March 19th in closed session and determine if one of these amazing candidates will be asked to be our next fire chief. The public is always welcome to provide input. And before the commission enters into closed session on March 19th, there'll be an opportunity to come to our meeting and provide that, provide your opinions. So we encourage you to do that, either virtually or in person. You can also share your feedback anytime by emailing pfc@fitchburgwi.gov. Thank you all again for joining us. I want to thank Sarah and her team for organizing the event tonight. All of our firefighters that shared the night with us tonight, thank you for being here, of course. The command staff, who had a very integrated part of the process over the last few days, and of course our friends at Fact TV. Jeremy and staff do a great job, and we certainly appreciate you. Travel home safely, please. God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Good luck, man.